is Good Morning Indiana, working for you.
It is 5 o'clock here on your Wednesday. Good morning to you. I'm Lauren Casey.
And I'm Meredith Barrick. Here's what's making headlines on this June 10th. It has already been a violent year so far in Indianapolis with 91 homicides in the city. Working for you, what local leaders say is the reason behind the spike and what's being done to stop it.
As George Floyd is laid to rest, lawmakers on Capitol Hill and City Halls are considering ways to reform police procedures. What many are also doing to remove what some call symbols of racism.
And companies around the world are trying to learn more about COVID-19, including genetics company 23andMe, why they believe a person's blood type could play a role in contracting the virus. But first, here at 5 o'clock, we need to get a check of our Storm Team 6 forecast.
That's right. You heard the beep beep. It is a Storm Team 6 alert day. But Todd, as folks head out the door early this morning, Meredith and I were saying it almost feels like we're on the beach or something. It's breezy, but it's a really warm kind of tropical feel.
Yeah, you know, and that warmth and the humidity, it's all part of that tropical system. It just ushered that warmth and the humidity here into central Indiana. So it definitely does have that tropical lake or beach feel. And look at these temperatures here at 5 o'clock in the morning, sitting at 80 degrees in Indianapolis right now, 80 in Bloomington, 82 in Lafayette. Temperatures today, we're not going to go up a whole lot. We'll only get to about 84 to 85 degrees as that cold front eventually makes its way through the area. So this morning, if you choose to get out and do a walk or run, you'll work up a sweat very quickly, but you do not have to worry about any precipitation. As you see, Storm Team 6 radar is completely quiet this morning. In fact, there is a little bit of cloud cover out there, but that will be decreasing as the morning goes on. But off to our west, you don't see a ton in the way of storms, at least in Illinois. There's a few starting to get going, but you do notice the big swirl or the counterclockwise spin there. That's an area of low pressure, and that's what's going to swing through during the day today. So we'll see the clouds decrease this morning. The winds will be high again today, even outside of any thunderstorms. And then as we get into that 2 o'clock to probably 5 o'clock time frame, that's when there will be the threat of severe weather for some of you. We'll detail who has the best potential of seeing the severe storms and what the impacts will be coming up in just a little bit. Lauren.
Todd, thank you. Let's take a look right now at traffic as you're heading out on the roads this Wednesday. Here's a look south of downtown on I-65. This is a view near Keystone Avenue where we have ongoing road construction, that big traffic shift in the northbound lanes. Northbound and southbound restricted, and the exit ramps remain open. Entrance ramps also open there off Keystone Avenue, so use caution as you're merging this morning. Right now, construction is quiet. Don't see any active crews out there right now, but just be careful during the day. Take it slow as you head through any construction zone around the area. Well, deadly violence is a growing problem right here in Indianapolis.
City leaders are working to learn what's responsible for the increase in violence and putting plans in place to stop it. Our Alyssa Donovan is live this morning with the details. Alyssa.
Good morning. Since the beginning of the year, there's been 91 homicides. That's up from the same time last year when we had 64. And those are not numbers anyone wants to see in our city. Now, we want families across the city losing mothers, fathers, siblings, and children to violence. We spoke with one woman who received one of those calls. Elizabeth Bird's 15-year-old brother, Peter Lambermont, was shot and killed back in January. Bird shared these photos, saying the teen just hooked up with the wrong kids. Since then, countless others have been impacted by violence. The city's director of community violence reduction says the pandemic has added additional challenges as they're not able to run many of the programs they typically do and work with people face-to-face to help curb the violence.
It's always difficult. People think you get used to it. I never do. It hurts me each time like it's brand new, like I've never heard it before.
But she says work is being done. Within the coming weeks, several youth and young adult summer programs will resume. A resource fair is also being planned. The goal is to connect people with job opportunities and mental health counselors. They're also working to form new relationships with organizations and businesses across the city. The hope is that they can create some new programming out of that. But they also say that this is up to the people of Indianapolis. The city can only do so much. The community has to do their part as well. Reporting live, Alyssa Donovan, RTV6.
Alyssa, thank you. An emotional final farewell for George Floyd. Family, friends, and politicians, celebrities all packing a church in Houston to say goodbye. Just hours after, there's new hope that lasting and meaningful change will be possible. Lawmakers from Capitol Hill to city halls across the country are considering ways to reform police procedures. ABC's Inez de la Catera has the details.
This morning, a statue of Christopher Columbus sitting at the bottom of a lake. As George Floyd's death sparks a new movement, the removal of what some say are symbols of racism. A crowd in Richmond, Virginia, knocking the statue down, dragging it from a park, and throwing it into the water. Nearby, a stalemate over this monument to Robert E. Lee. The governor wants it gone, but a judge has now issued an injunction against its removal. And Nascar driver Bubba Wallace now calling for Confederate flags to be removed from racetracks.
No one should feel uncomfortable when they come to a NASCAR race. So it starts with Confederate flags. Get them out of here. They have no place for them.
It follows an emotional final farewell for George Floyd Tuesday.
I believe that a change is gonna come.
Friends, family members, politicians, and celebrities packing a church in Houston.
I want justice for my brother. My big brother.
His death in police custody in Minneapolis is sparking a global outcry over police brutality and racial prejudice. Just hours after the funeral, the district attorney's office announced it's dropping charges against nearly 800 protesters in Houston. On Capitol Hill, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell asking Tim Scott, the chamber's only black Republican, to draft a police reform bill.
I've asked Senator Tim Scott to lead a group that is working on a proposal to allow us to respond to the obvious racial discrimination that we've seen on full display on our television screens over the last 2 weeks.
And when it comes to the Confederate flag, another development this morning, the U.S. Navy is now planning to ban the flag from all public spaces on ships and aircraft. Inez de la Catera, ABC News, Washington.
Now to the latest on the coronavirus outbreak, and the total number of COVID-19 cases in our state has reached more than 38,000. The Indiana State Department of Health confirming 430 new cases and 23 new deaths in their latest report. 2,158 Hoosiers have died from the virus since the pandemic began. More than 315,000 people have been tested so far. 12% of those tests have come back positive. Governor Eric Holcomb is set to give an update on the state's response to this pandemic that's set for this afternoon. The Indiana Black Expo and the Indiana Department of Health have opened up a new COVID-19 testing site at the headquarters of the Black Expo. That's at 601 North Shortridge Road on the east side. The COVID-19 testing will happen daily at 9 a.m. and last through 7 p.m. through June 30th. You must register before you show up at the testing site. You can find a link and a phone number to register on our website. That's theindychannel.com. You can also go to the RTV6 mobile app.
COVID-19 research is taking place around the world, mostly at universities, but some private companies are doing their own studies as well. Our Kelsey Anderson joins us this morning with what one genetic testing company is finding.
23andMe just released their preliminary data, and what they found was that people with type O blood could be less likely to contract the coronavirus. Here's a look at the data. You can see it isn't by much that people with type O blood aren't contracting the virus. And that's why Dr. Christopher Belcher, Infection Prevention Medical Director at St. Vincent, says this study doesn't mean you are invincible.
We continue to learn new things about this virus, and we're learning more and more who's at risk and how this virus works. Do the simple things. Wear your face mask when you're out to protect others. Wash your hands really well so you don't pick it up. If you're high risk, you should still be at home as much as you can and not around large groups of people.
Dr. Belcher says the 23andMe study is legitimate and compares to studies done in Italy, Spain, and China. More than 750,000 people participated in 23andMe's study after using the company for genetic testing. If you want to take a closer look at this study, we've got it linked for you over on theindychannel.com. Just search 23andMe. I'm Kelsey Anderson, RTV6.
Kelsey, thanks. The COVID-19 pandemic is forcing some cutbacks at the Children's Museum of Indianapolis. The museum announced that it is permanently closing its preschool for 3- and 4-year-olds. The preschool was located inside the Children's Museum. Its curriculum was tied closely to the museum's exhibits and programming. CEO Jeffrey Patchen said that because of COVID, many families couldn't commit to tuition for the upcoming year. It would also be expensive to modify classes for proper protocols. The Children's Museum itself remains closed until further notice.
Hiring Hoosiers is committed to connecting you to education and job opportunities to help you rebound from the economic impact of this pandemic. Ivy Tech is offering free classes and training to help Indiana's workforce grow. These courses will cover a variety of subjects to help Hoosiers take the first or the next steps towards earning their degree or a certificate. The free offer is for Indiana residents only, and it's limited to 10,000 students. You can find a link to the list of courses in this story. It's at theindychannel.com. At 5:10, let's get a check of our forecast right now with Todd Clausen. It is a Storm Team 6 alert day.
Yeah, and it's mainly this afternoon again, Lauren, that we really have to be alert to the potential for some strong to severe storms this morning. While it's a little uncomfortable, it's warm and it's muggy out there, we're not dealing with any storms here throughout at least probably the noon hour. So that is the good news. But a good chunk of the area under some sort of risk from the Storm Prediction Center, including the enhanced risk from Peru to Muncie over into the Greenfield down in Greensburg area. And then as you work your way westward, it becomes a slight risk in the yellow and then a marginal risk to the west. So the further east you are today, the greater your threat for severe weather, and that just has to do with the timing of the front coming through and the time of the day, with the peak heating being obviously in the afternoon and evening hours. The front is still off to our west. Not much going on. Radar right now, just some scattered storms in central Illinois. And it's not out of the question there could be a stray shower here this morning, but again, it's really this afternoon that we're in alert mode for. All forms of severe weather on the table, including the threat of some isolated tornadoes. Highs today in the mid-80s. Tomorrow, though, a new air mass and a new weather pattern starts, one I think you're going to like. More on that coming up in just a little bit.
All right, Todd, thank you. The husband of an Idaho woman whose kids have been missing for months is now in custody after human remains were found at his home. Coming up, the latest from investigators on that case.
And you may have noticed it is hard to find some snack food favorites at the grocery store. Still ahead, why experts say companies stop making some chips, cookies, and peanut butter. It's 5:12. We'll be right back.
It's Thursday, 9/8 Central on ABC.
There's a second arrest in the case of 2 missing children from Idaho. Their stepfather now behind bars after investigators say they found human remains on his property. ABC's Megan Tevrizian has the latest.
This morning, a grim discovery in the search for 2 missing siblings, last seen more than 9 months ago.
Detectives and investigators have recovered what's believed to be human remains that have not been identified at this time.
17-year-old Tylee and now 8-year-old JJ have not been seen since September. Their mother, Lori Vallow, is behind bars after authorities say she claimed JJ was with a friend out of state and claimed Tylee had died last year, even though her husband, Chad Daybell, said in February that the children were safe.
Chad, Lori, can you tell me where your kids are? Where's JJ?
But on Tuesday, police arrested Daybell after searching his property. Dozens of investigators, including police and FBI, scouring the farm with dogs and digging for hours before uncovering an unidentified body. Daybell, seen here getting handcuffed on the side of the road, was arrested after allegedly trying to run from police.
We saw a car fly past us, and there was a couple of cops behind it following him. They got him to pull over, and then several other cop cars arrived shortly after.
He's now accused of concealing or destroying evidence.
There he is! There he is!
Authorities say Tuesday's search of the property is linked to the disappearance of Vallow's 2 children, but it comes after a long line of suspicious deaths in Daybell's and Vallow's families, including both of their former spouses and Vallow's brother. Police say they grew suspicious of Daybell after he married Vallow 2 weeks after his first wife died. Her body was exhumed in December. Police searched his property in January, but no body was found at the time.
Chad Daybell will be in court today and is expected to face additional charges. The Idaho Attorney General's office says it is also investigating him in connection to the death of his first wife. Megan Tevrizian, ABC News, San Diego.
Well, the FCC says 2 people are responsible for about 1 billion Robo Calls last year, and now they're facing the agency's biggest fine ever. The FCC says John Spiller and Jacob Mears were health telemarketers, and they made calls through their 2 companies, Rising Eagle and J Squared. They sent automated messages to people promising health plans through known insurers like Aetna and United Health. The victims were then told to press a button for more information, which transferred them to a call center offering fake health plans. Spiller and Mears could pay up to $225 million for those robocalls. They also face lawsuits in 7 states.
After months of dark screens and empty seats, movie theaters nationwide are preparing to open back up. The National Association of Theater Owners says it will happen by mid-July. However, it won't be quite what we're used to, as health officials warn against large indoor gatherings. Many theaters will limit the number of titles they show and operate at as little as a quarter capacity. Broadway theaters will also stay closed at least through early September.
Craving double stuffed Oreos, maybe flamin' hot Cheetos, but you can't seem to find them at their local grocery store? Well, there's a reason. Experts say that food manufacturers have cut back on producing some more unique food items to meet demands for those traditional items. When the stay-at-home orders went into effect, companies like General Mills, Pepsi, and Coke saw a massive spike for certain items. So to meet that demand, they cut down on the varieties of Jif peanut butter, Oreo cookies, and chips at the store. Analysts say that companies will likely go back to producing a wider variety of items soon. So Meredith, your peanut butter hopefully will be back restocked very soon.
Yes, I'm waiting patiently. Hey, you can now have food delivered from Black-owned restaurants with no delivery fee for the rest of the year. Uber Eats made the announcement on Twitter, saying it's a response to users' requests to be able to find Black-owned restaurants. Uber employees used publicly available sources to determine which restaurants are owned by Black entrepreneurs. Food delivery competitor Postmates also offering no delivery fees for Black-owned restaurants. It allows customers to help identify such restaurants by tagging them. Man, all these stories about food and movies, it makes me want to sit back and, you know, enjoy a nice cold soda and some popcorn, Todd.
Yeah, I'll take the popcorn, but I'd probably trade the soda out for something else, Meredith. But you're exactly right. It is going to be a nice day today, at least to start with the warmth around. But as the day goes on, that's when we're going to start to get into the threat of some severe weather. So one issue that we're all going to deal with, just like yesterday, is the wind. That wind really kicked up during the morning hours yesterday, and today's no different. It's not bad out right now, but once the sun comes up, we'll start to increase these wind speeds a little bit as we work our way through the middle half of the morning hours. And we could see some wind gusts up to about 40 miles per hour as the front goes through, which the timing of that is between about 3 and 6 o'clock this evening. And then once the front goes through, the winds will finally start to calm down here in just a little bit across the area. Now outside right now, the clouds are starting to break apart. I just went outside, and Meredith and Lauren were talking about it earlier. It feels almost very tropical like out there, with temperatures currently right around 80 degrees and the humidity as well. And you can see the moon through the clouds. So those clouds are getting thinner and thinner. But off to our west, that's where we find the cold front here from St. Louis down towards the Memphis area. And it's this front that's going to come through later on this afternoon and help to trigger some isolated showers and thunderstorms. So the timing of the front coming through during the peak heating of the day brings the greatest severe threat off towards the east. The brown color, enhanced risk of severe weather. And then as you work your way westward into the yellow, slight risk and marginal, as that front will approach Terre Haute and Lafayette earlier in the afternoon. So not as great of a potential as severe weather, but certainly you'll still probably get some storms as that front goes through. So the main threat by far is going to be wind, and that's even outside of the storm chances, as those gusts, as I showed you, up to about 40 miles per hour. Can't rule out the chance of an isolated tornado. Hail's the lowest threat that we have in the forecast for the day today as far as severe weather goes, and do not worry about flooding as these storms will move through very, very quickly. You'll notice a few storms starting to flare up across the state line here this morning. Most of those should probably miss us and lift to the north. But once we get to the noon hour onward, look how these storms start to blossom across the area. And then very quickly, as we get into mid to late afternoon on the eastern side of the state, that's where the storms are going to have the best potential to be strong to severe. Hopefully, at least for us here in central Indiana, they don't develop across our area, and then they'll race off towards the east pretty quickly. But there definitely is the threat today, again, of severe storms. So keep that in mind. If you do have plans, download that Storm Shield app from the App Store. It's completely free. You can set it to your specific location. It'll give you any warnings or watches that are issued. Once we get past today, a pretty nice stretch of weather all the way into the weekend and beyond with sunny skies and cooler, more comfortable temperatures. Lauren?
All right, Todd, thank you. Let's take a look at traffic right now. This is our view from our in-depth traffic camera over on the east side, southeast side, I-465, a little south of I-74. You can see traffic there is moving along up to speed, both eastbound and westbound this morning. We'll continue to keep a close eye on your roads, but right now the good news, if you're heading out early this morning, there are no crashes to report around the metro area.
NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace has unveiled a new paint job for his race car in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. His number 43 car is now adorned with the hashtag Black Lives Matter across the side. On the hood, there are two hands clasped together, one black and one white, and written underneath is compassion, love, and understanding. Wallace says he hopes the new look can bring more awareness to the movement. The car will be used in today's race, the Blue Emu Maximum Pain Relief 500 in Virginia. Basketball legend Michael Jordan trading in the ball for a fishing rod. How he caught this giant fish? Is that taller than him? After the break, we'll be right back.
Or visit benbuysindy.com.
From basketball to baseball and now fishing, Michael Jordan made himself a competitor after hauling in a massive catch. His fishing boat, the Catch 23, brought in a 442-pound big blue marlin in a North Carolina fishing tournament. They joined more than 200 others competing this year. All of them were hoping to win the ultimate prize of more than $3 million. Jordan didn't win this time, though. 3 other boats already reeled in big blue marlins weighing in more than 450 pounds. Well, maybe we will see his fishing career documented in a documentary that'll air in, a decade or so called The Last Cast. Playing off The Last Dance.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe the fish just wanted to meet Michael Jordan. I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I just wonder how long it took him to reel that thing in. I almost caught a marlin once. We saw one when I was on vacation. We were fishing, but no can do, but massive fish. I'm sure they fought it for hours there. All right, outside right now, it's dry, it's warm, it's muggy, but our attention not so much this morning on the forecast, but later on this afternoon as a cold front comes through, and that's going to ramp up not only the rain chances, but the storm chances in the forecast. And some of these storms will have the potential to be strong to severe. You see a couple storms starting to get going, non-severe across parts of Illinois, but it's really this cold front that has to come through this afternoon. That doesn't look all that impressive right now, but once we get into the peak heating of the day, storms will start to develop. We'll talk more about them on the Storm Team 6 Alert Day for you when Good Morning Indiana continues. Stay with us. We're back in just a little bit.
Show today at 10 on RTV 6. This is Good Morning Indiana, working for you.
It has been a violent, deadly year so far in the Circle City. Now at 5:30, we're live with what officials say is behind the violence.
Plus, new research is providing some answers into the coronavirus. This morning, why a popular genetics company says that your blood type may protect you from the virus. But first, here at 5:30, we do want to welcome you into Good Morning Indiana. I'm Lauren Casey.
And I'm Meredith Barrick. Meteorologist Todd Clausen standing by. Todd, I know a lot of people disappointed they had to cancel vacations over the past few months. And if anyone was headed anywhere tropical, they can step outside this morning and kind of get the same feeling that they might have had on that vacation.
You have to keep in mind that storm system that we dealt with yesterday and we're kind of still dealing with today in an indirect way originated in the Gulf of Mexico. So it came to the north and it brought all that humidity, Meredith, and that tropical-like feel right here in central Indiana. And right now, temperatures are still sitting right around 80 degrees and a lot of humidity if you haven't been outside as of yet. You notice the clouds starting to break apart, and just off to our west, you notice there are some storms here in parts of Illinois that are starting to get themselves together. However, nothing severe severe here this morning, but the overall picture shows exactly what's going on. We have our area of low pressure near Kansas City. That's the spin you see with the clouds and also the rain. And then we also have this cold front that is off to our west, and this is all going to make its way through our area later on today. So there could be a stray shower this morning, but it's really noon onward that we bring in the chance of just some isolated storms. Now, it is perfectly possible that you could go throughout the entire day today without a drop of rainfall. That's definitely a possibility. It's going to be more of a broken line and isolated storms that get going. And the best potential for the strong to severe storms is going to be here across the eastern portion of the state as we get into the afternoon hours. So just be weather aware today. Temperatures will be climbing only into the mid to upper 80s this afternoon with that humidity. Tomorrow, though, starts a beautiful stretch of weather. More on that coming up in just a little bit.
Todd, thank you. This is a look right now at traffic over on the east side. You can see I-70 here on Emerson Avenue. Traffic is moving along just fine, both eastbound and westbound for your commute. We'll continue to keep our eyes on your roads as you're heading out the door this Wednesday and let you know if there are any issues you need to avoid.
There have been 91 homicides in the Circle City since the start of the year. That is up from 64 homicides during the same time in 2019. City leaders are now working on ways to curb the violence. Our Alyssa Donovan is live this morning with the details. Really startling numbers, Alyssa.
That's right, Meredith. And 3 of those homicides happening just last weekend. Those families now mourning the loss of loved ones. Now, since 2018 into 2019, there was a change in those statistics. Between 2018 and 2019, there was a slight decrease in homicides in Indianapolis. But now the statistics are showing an upward trend. The city's director of community violence reduction says the pandemic has made it challenging for them to do their jobs as they're not able to run many of the programs they typically do and work with people face to face. However, in coming weeks, several youth and young adult programs will resume. A resource fair is also being planned. The goal, to connect people with job opportunities and mental health counselors.
Really want people to be patient with each other coming back out of COVID-19 restriction and to think before they act.
And there has been a major investment in neighborhood-based anti-crime efforts over the past several years. Last year, more than $2 million in grants was awarded to local projects to help curb crime. And right now, the city is working on more programming like that. They're working to partner with local organizations and businesses to add programming to help curb the violence in Indianapolis. Reporting live, Alyssa Donovan, RTV6.
Alyssa, thank you. After more than a week of peaceful protests, the boards blocking those windows and doors downtown are starting to come down here in our city.
Some businesses are back open, like the commissary, barber, and barista. The shop's door was kicked in and some equipment was stolen after protests turned destructive, the last weekend of May. But some places are still trying to bounce back, like Michael's Soul Kitchen, which is still working with insurance to make repairs.
When it first happened, the shop was there. We were a black-owned business. We have been helping during this whole COVID-19. We have been doing all kind of stuff. So when it happened, it was like, wow.
We were protesting ourselves, so we were a part of it. When it's peaceful, it's great. You know, it sucks the door got kicked in, but when it comes to human lives, a door is nothing.
Many people and groups have stepped up to help businesses impacted by the unrest. Volunteers with City Life help Michaels clean up the restaurant's damage.
And the Mass Ave Merchants Association is hosting a cleanup weekend. That event will be Friday, June 19th and Saturday, June 20th from 9 a.m. until noon. Volunteers will be working on weeding and pruning, cleaning the curb line of debris and picking up trash, and also mulching the landscape beds. You're asked to bring your own gloves, a roll of sturdy trash bags, and your favorite weeding tools. Games, prizes, and refreshments will be provided. You can find more information on the RTV6 app. New this morning, funeral and visitation arrangements have been announced for Chris Beatty. He's the 38-year-old who was shot and killed 2 weeks ago during the weekend violence. A homegoing celebration for the former IU and Cathedral football player will be held this Friday at the Pavilion at Pan Am. Services will be from noon to 6 p.m. Those are open to the public. Then a private funeral for the family will be held Saturday. In lieu of flowers, the family requests donations to be made to the Chris Beatty Memorial Fund. That fund will provide scholarships for incoming students at Indiana University and Cathedral High School in Chris's memory. Police are still looking for possible suspects.
The man accused of killing Fisher's police canine Harley has been sentenced. 19-year-old Richard Garrett pleaded guilty to battery against a public safety official, criminal recklessness, and other charges. The November 2019 incident began when Garrett did not pull over during a traffic stop and then led police on a chase. It ended with Garrett shooting and killing Harley. Garrett is looking at even more serious charges here in Marion County, where he faces 2 counts of murder and several other crimes. The Hamilton County and Marion County cases are not related.
It is 5:38. Now to the latest on the COVID-19 pandemic in Indiana. State health leaders reporting an increase in both the number of new COVID-19 deaths and new cases. The Indiana State Department of Health reporting 23 new deaths from the coronavirus. Since the pandemic began, 2,158 Hoosiers have died from the virus. The Department of Health also confirms 430 new COVID-19 cases. So far, 38,033 people in Indiana have been diagnosed with the coronavirus. The state says more than 315,000 people have been tested for COVID-19. 12.1% of them tested positive for it. We expect an update from the state around noon today. And there is new information this morning on the effectiveness of the stay-at-home orders across the country. Researchers say those efforts likely prevented 60 million additional cases of the coronavirus. The study measured the effect of the shutdown policies in 6 countries, and it included data on daily infection rates and the changes in coronavirus case definitions and timing of the large-scale shutdown policies. Another study examined COVID-19 deaths across 11 countries in Europe. That one estimates lockdown orders and school closures may have prevented more than 3 million deaths through early May.
COVID-19 research is taking place around the world, mostly at universities. But some private companies are doing their own studies as well. Our Kelsey Anderson joins us this morning with what one genetic testing company is finding.
If you have type O blood, studies done by 23andMe say you could be less likely to contract the coronavirus. The company 23andMe used more than 750,000 people in their study and found people with type O blood aren't getting the virus as much as people with other blood types. But if you take a look at this chart, you can see it isn't by much, and that's why Dr. Christopher Belcher, Infection Prevention Medical Director at St. Vincent, says this study doesn't mean you are invincible to the virus.
It's still not enough to protect you. You can't walk out and say, I have blood type O, I'm invincible, because those people got sick too. They were less likely to, but the difference was not enough.
Dr. Belcher does want to remind folks to be careful when signing up to be a part of studies like this, because there could be a breach of privacy. If you want to take a closer look at this study, we've got it linked for you over on the IndyChannel.com. Just search 23andMe. I'm Kelsey Anderson, RTV6.
All right, thank you there, Kelsey. As we go throughout the day today, everybody's going to deal with some gusty winds here across central Indiana as this cold front works its way through. And so we're kind of in alert mode for several reasons. The wind by itself could gust up to 40 miles per hour, but then we also have the potential for some strong to severe storms later on this afternoon. Now, the morning hours should be pretty quiet, but the cold front is still off to our west, and this cold front is going to be making its way towards central Indiana and then eventually through central Indiana as we go into the afternoon hours. It's a pretty small window for severe weather as this front goes through very quickly, so it's probably between, I would say, 2 and 5 o'clock, the greatest threat of severe weather. Wind by far is the biggest threat, but can't rule out the chance of an isolated tornado or two this afternoon. Flooding, though, not a concern, again, because these storms are moving very, very quickly. We'll dive into them in more detail coming up when Good Morning Indiana continues right here on RTV6.
Home is a healthy home. We're ready when you are.
President Trump is facing criticism this morning after tweeting a conspiracy theory about this encounter between a 75-year-old protester and Buffalo police. Martin Gugino left the hospital Tuesday, 5 days after being shoved to the ground. In a tweet, the president said Gugino, quote, could be an Antifa provocateur and was pushed away after appearing to scan police communications in order to black out the equipment. He went on to say Gugino, quote, fell harder than he was pushed. Could have be a setup. In response, several people called for Twitter to ban the president, but the company, which has censored previous tweets by Trump, said this tweet did not violate its rules.
Machines down, long lines, scorching and stormy weather. It is just a few of the frustrations Georgia voters faced at the primary polls Tuesday. The state now launching an investigation into what went wrong. Scores of new state-ordered voting machines were reported to be missing or malfunctioning. The system was put in place after a widespread claim of voter suppression during the state's 2018 governor's election. Officials say predominantly black areas experienced some of the worst problems. Georgia's Secretary of State blamed local officials.
Well, some U.S. military bases could see a name change soon. U.S. Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy and the Secretary of Defense Mark Esper says they're holding bipartisan conversations about renaming nearly a dozen major bases and installations that are named after Confederate military commanders. So that means Army installations including Fort Bragg in North Carolina, Fort Hood in Texas, Fort A.P. Hill in Virginia. They could all be renamed. But in a statement released on Monday, the Army said that each Army installation is named for a soldier who holds a significant place in our military history. The statement went on to say that the names represent the individuals, not ideologies.
A historic vote on Capitol Hill Tuesday. The Senate confirmed General Charles Q. Brown Jr. to be Chief of Staff of the Air Force. He's the first African-American to serve in the position. General Brown was sworn in with a 98-0 vote. Days before his confirmation, General Brown released a video titled "What I'm Thinking About." In it, he talked about his experience as a black man in the military and the pressure and racism he faced. He said his nomination provides hope, but also comes with a heavy burden. Here at 5:47, we want to see what's going on in our weather department today. Todd?
You know, there's quite a bit going on, especially this afternoon. You heard that beep there. That signifies that it is a Storm Team 6 alert day for us. And here's how everything kind of breaks down for you. We'll have the threat of damaging wind and the threat of some isolated tornadoes. It's even windy without the storms, as we could see gusts up to about 40 miles per hour. And then there's the heavy rainfall potential, but it will be in brief spurts. So flooding, even though there's some heavy rain in the forecast, it's not prolonged. So we're not looking at any flooding situation. But definitely if you're driving, you get into some of these tropical light downpours, could cause some issues out there. Wind gusts today will kind of ramp up as that front approaches. And you can see the hour-by-hour breakdown with those gusts getting to close to 40 miles per hour as the front passes, which should be right around 5 o'clock. You see the wind direction, the arrow change there as we'll go from more of a southerly wind to eventually more of a westerly wind later on tonight. So the storms are starting to fire up here near Champaign, Illinois already. Those will miss us, but as the front gets closer, that's kind of what things are going to look like here in central Indiana later on this afternoon. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a solid line of storms sweeping across the state. It's going to be more isolated or broken line of storms as this cold front passes. The area of low pressure itself still well off here to our west, and that's what's going to have to work its way through our area. So parts of the area under the enhanced risk, Indianapolis, the slight risk. The further west you go, the threat of severe weather diminishes. You'll still see some storms, no doubt about that. But the further east you are, just because the storms arrive during the peak heating of the day, they'll have the potential to be a little stronger and more severe. Wind, the main threat, followed by an isolated tornado or two today. Flooding not a concern, and neither is much in the way of hail. There could be a little small hail, but nothing major. So by 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, an isolated storm or two starting to flare up. But watch as I advance this graphic past 1 o'clock, what happens on the eastern side of the state. Those storms really flare up. Now, whether it happens in eastern Indiana or in western Ohio will be key to determine who sees the severe weather. Hopefully for us, we don't see the severe weather, and we don't want to wish any ill on western Ohio. But those storms will kind of flare up in that general vicinity, and that's where they'll be the strongest later on today. Temperatures right now are sitting in the 70s and 80s. It's a very warm, it's a very muggy start to our day. And then as we work our way throughout the next 7 days, you noticed we'll be pretty rain-free. There could be a stray shower on Saturday, but otherwise plenty of sunshine mixed in as well, with lows in the 50s, highs in the 70s and 80s. Lauren?
All right, looks like a great 7-day forecast, Todd. Thank you. Let's take a look right now at your commute as you're heading out on the roads. As Todd said, the morning hours are quiet, so your morning commute not impacted by the weather right now. But here's a look at some construction that could slow you down a little. This is a long-term project ongoing here at I-65 and Keystone Avenue. south of downtown. So be aware of the traffic shifting and the lane restrictions in this area and throughout the daytime hours. Watch for crews working in that area. Take it slow.
Oprah is taking on the discussion about race. Her own network is airing a 2-night special called Own Spotlight. Where do we go from here? The TV mogul will talk with a variety of African-American leaders, activists, and artists about systemic racism and current issues Black Americans face. Among those expected to speak, former Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams and Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. Part 1 aired Tuesday. Part 2 airs tonight beginning at 9.
Twitter and Square are getting a new holiday. CEO Jack Dorsey announced they're going to be adding Juneteenth as an official company holiday. Juneteenth is short for June 19th. The day commemorates the freeing of slaves in Texas in 1865. Dorsey said the holiday will mark, quote, a day of celebration, education, and connection. The CEO has been active on addressing national issues. In April, he announced he was transferring $1 billion of his Square equity to a limited liability company that will provide relief for victims of the coronavirus and then shift to girls' health and education.
If you're looking for a little escape, you could head out to California's Napa Valley. After the break, why wine lovers only have to go to Greenwood to enjoy a great wine experience. We'll be right back.
Apply online today.
Chardonnay, Cabernet, a nice glass of bubbly. For many people, any time is a good time for wine, and Greenwood's got a place to enjoy all of it.
And Meredith, I can tell you from experience, the food there is just as good as the grapes, and our Brad Brown shows us the setting is one of the area's most unique spots.
You don't have to be a wine lover to enjoy your time at Vino Villa. But if you are, you'll find a bit of bliss on this cozy corner.
Back when we opened was the fact that we really just didn't have any place, I felt, on the south side like this, where you could go and, learn about good wine, experience good wine.
Paul Jacquin opened Vino Villa in Greenwood back in 2011. It was intended to be just a wine shop, but quickly became much more.
As we were building out the facility and as the sign went up out front, neighborhood, came by and said, "Hey, what are you doing here?"
What they're doing is a full-on wine experience. More than 400 selections available in the shop, 20 plus by the glass that go with an amazing scratch-made food menu. From hearty shareables to sandwiches and salads, home-style Italian dishes, and a stunning display of desserts.
Our head chef is Felipe, our pastry chef is Jordan, and I tell you, some of the stuff that the two of them put out of the kitchen is, amazing. Given we've taken an old house that's 116 years old, the kitchen wasn't really set up to be a commercial restaurant.
The house that Vino Villa calls home was built by the Polk family in 1904, with a wine shop, dining room, and third-floor bar inside. Right now, though, the outdoor patio and gazebo are the prime spots.
Fortunate or unfortunate with the opening at half capacity, I think the weather has been great, and people feel very comfortable, probably more comfortable outside than in. The patrons in general have been overwhelmingly supportive of the business.
And that is Brad Brown reporting there. Meredith and Todd, we're going to get Raphael. We'll have a meetup, one of my favorite spots in Greenwood. And they're putting in a bocce ball court outside.
Oh,
so
fun.
A lot of fun stuff happening down there.
All right. Well, we'll have to go.
Sign me up. You don't have to twist my arm too much.
Yeah, and we'll have to go when the weather maybe isn't so humid and with the potential for storms. Right, Todd?
Yeah, there's a window today, probably from about 1 to 4 or 5 o'clock, that there'll be the chance of some isolated storms. You're fine here this morning, but some of those storms could be strong to severe. So you definitely, as Meredith kind of alluded to there, have to take precautions if you do have plans outdoors, and at least stay weather aware as these storms will move through. Not everybody's going to see them, but if you do, again, the potential for severe weather is there. That's why it's a Storm Team 6 alert day. It is warm and muggy this morning. Temperatures right around 80 degrees here at almost 6 a.m. 84 today. With those storms coming in, even outside the storms, it's going to be a windy day again with gusts up to about 35 miles per hour. We'll talk more about the storms coming up in just a little bit.
Running for his life, and why the Postal Service says no to a damage claim. I'm Rafael Sanchez. That story at 6 a.m. on Good Morning Indiana.